Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Joining me in the studio tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, fresh from the beard trimmer. He took a weed eater to his like I did mine. It's looking a little more human, like I started to. Robbie, how you doing, brother?
Feeling less like a Sasquatch. Doing good. How you?
I'm all right. I like the beard look, less woolly.
Well, I usually only trim it like twice a year, so
Well,
it was getting time.
I hear you. So, how the heck you been, man? You been busy this week?
It's not been too bad. It's been, I don't want to say steady. Monday, I had a few things going on. Tuesday was kind of, and then had a few things going on today. So it's just, I mean, that's kind of the way it is in elementary school, though. You know, you'll have times when it seems like everything's going on at once, and then you'll have like 2 or 3 weeks when nothing happens. Because in elementary school, 90% of what you deal with are parents that are causing trouble. I mean, it's not the kids, because there's nothing you can do with a kid anyway.
Well,
not that age group anyway.
Check this out, Robbie. Oh, wait. God dang it. Missed the... It must have shifted. Speak of the devil, we were just talking about you, Fred.
Yes, we were, Fred.
We were just before we went live. We was talking about you. I need to shoot you a message or have you shoot me one. I want to see about getting you back on the show here in the very near future. We got a couple of ideas for some content we would like to run by you and get you back on the show because it has been too long.
Yeah, it's been. It's been about, what, 5-6 months?
Been that, probably. Maybe a little more. Fred's channel is taking off. He's doing so well. I'm proud of the guy. I mean, that is awesome. I'm all about, all the best success for folks that are putting out great content. And, I wish everybody the best. I mean, I wouldn't wish ill on somebody unless they were a dire enemy, and even then, I just wish they'd leave me alone. But it just in these cases, I'm so happy that other people, that other channels are growing and getting successful. It really makes me smile.
Yep. Well, and honestly, that's what it's all about. And if more people would subscribe to that same theory, it would be a lot better.
Those of you who are familiar with the show Expedition X with Josh Gates, Josh Gates is Expedition X. The most recent episode, they had an appearance by Mr. Fred Roll from Subarctic Sasquatch. I was disappointed they went with the other guy's story instead of Fred's. I don't think they probably would have wanted to go out where Fred's story happened. But the other guy they interviewed from Alaska, his story was interesting, but it wasn't terrifying like Fred's. So I don't know if the folks from Expedition X were quite ready for what happened to Fred, but that would have been a much better episode. I was thrilled to death when I saw Fred was on there. I'm like, I know that guy. My wife's like, how do you know him? I'm like, that's Fred Roll. He's been on my show. She's like, you do not. So I pulled him up on Facebook and then pulled up a couple of the episodes. She's like, huh. I'll be damned.
Okay. Yes, you do.
So I was really happy to see that. Good job, Fred. So what do you think, man? I'm sorry, I'm eating a jelly bean. Topic for tonight is cryptids. Or are they hunting us? What do you think?
I think some are. I mean, honestly, I don't think that's a large portion of the population of cryptids is doing it, because if it was, it would be a serious problem. You know, we've kind of talked about that before. If they wanted us, they could. But I do think, I mean, at the risk of getting the chat stirred up again, I got to go back to, a comparison that I know. If every shark was after us, everybody that ever went in the ocean would die.
Get eaten. Well, I think that there are times when it happens, but I think that certain things have got to be met. I mean, the same thing happens with other large predators, say it be it grizzly bears or tigers in the wild.
Tigers.
There has to be a need and has to be an opportunity. If you run into one of these things, if it ain't hungry, it probably is not even going to mess with you.
Just like you said on Jessica's show today, that encounter you had with that grizzly bear, if it'd been in a different situation,
it would have been the end to me.
Probably would have ended a whole lot different.
Because he was way too close for me to do anything about it. And I wouldn't carry any. It was a national park, so I wouldn't carry anything but a walking stick. I could have reached out and bopped him on the head. That probably might not have been the best decision.
Yeah, that probably ticked him off.
But even when we're talking about the missing 411 with the people that go missing in the national parks, when we're talking about possible cryptid predation on people, I think it's got to meet certain criteria. Like the joke I said about the hiker that got eaten in Denali National Park up in Alaska. The bear that ate him was old. It was an old bear. It wasn't able to hunt like it used to. And if you're a bear that's past your prime, and you look one direction down the field and see a deer running at 45 miles an hour, and you look at the other guy and you see a guy with an AirPods in his ears, bipping out to Fleetwood Mac and wearing a pair of Birkenstocks, he's got to be going, I wonder how fast that thing can run.
Not very fast.
And therefore, much easier to catch.
Yeah. Well, case in point, look at that grizzly man.
Mm-hmm. How many interactions did he have with that same group of bears?
That's exactly what I was about to say. You can, 100 interactions, and 99 of them can be, perfectly fine, and all of a sudden, that one encounter that something is different, whether it be, and I think they did say the bear that killed him was old and injured, and there were some things that were going on with that bear, but he had, it's just right time, wrong place, or however you want to coin the phrase with it. Things like that happen. And I think there's ones in the population of cryptids that same stuff happens,
Well, like those lions in that Val Kilmer movie. Ghost in the Darkness. Those things were straight up serial killers. They enjoyed killing people. So I would say there's probably even instances of that in other animals throughout the animal kingdom. But the thing that I was going to say before I got sidetracked is when we're talking about cryptid predation on people, it's going to be very much like human predation on other people. Motive and opportunity, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when we're investigating a crime, what's the motive and opportunity?
Well, and I think that there would be a different motive.
Patty.
Hello, Patty. I think there would be a different motive for some Sasquatch kills versus dogman.
Right.
Because I think you would have more predation for food from dogman and more predation from territorial type stuff from Sasquatch.
Maybe. But
Depending on what
I
type.
give you the other side of that argument. Dr. Jane Goodall documented that chimps in Africa would abduct and eat small children.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think, I'm not saying that it's total one way and total the other. I'm just saying I think if you look at it, if we had a way to know everything, okay, this is how many people were killed by dogmen, this is how many people were killed by Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, and then here's the breakdown. I think it would be heavier on the territorial, get away from my family side on Bigfoots and Sasquatch, and heavier on food item on the dogman side. Obviously, you'd have it a breakdown on both sides, but I think it would just be heavier on one side for the other.
Yeah, I agree with that. But again, we do have a history of species of primates preying on each other.
Right.
So it's not outside the realm of possibility that they're going grocery shopping when they see a chunky dude like me walking through the woods.
Right. I mean, obviously we know that Gugway and Genosqua and what's some other ones that are known. Most of them are probably out there in Alaska with Fred are known to do it too. But by and large, I would think that that's a smaller portion of the entire cryptid population on the Sasquatch side that does it for food versus, get out of my territory, get away from my family. I like I said, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. It definitely happens in my opinion. I just don't think that is the main reason that it happens on the Bigfoot side. Like I said, because I think that if it did, and that was a reason, I think it would happen more. And I think there's a lot more Bigfoot out there than there are dogmen. I think that's a lot smaller population of dogmen than there are Bigfoots. So that's why I think it's scalable. If that makes sense. If Bigfoot was doing it for that, there would be a lot more. I don't think Bigfoot would be a he doesn't exist from the government type thing. The government would have to be like, look, you can't, you got to stay out of these areas because you're on the menu. There will be no way they couldn't.
That look at some of the cases, like for example, that Amazon driver here in Missouri back in 22, or the people that were killed in Tennessee in Cott County. They call it an animal attack or attack by canines, wild dogs. When you really look at the crime scenes and the evidence, it doesn't really jump out to you to be a wild dog attack, especially in the cases when they refuse to release the necropsy on the dogs.
Yeah, there again, unknown canine species. In 2024, what is an unknown canine species? Is there such a thing?
Considering we can track a dog's ancestry back to when it was a wolf. Yeah, there are no unknown canine species, and if we're getting back unknown canine DNA, something's wonky.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Goodell had a good point. It says running from a Bigfoot or dogman can throw a GNC protein powder at them, but running from any big predator is a mistake because it triggers their predatory response. Running from a mountain lion, probably going to get you mauled. Well, Thomas Cashman says they can only cover it up for so long, the truth will come out. I agree, but I think that there's been numerous chances where people tried to bring it out and it got shut up. I believe the government has known about these things for a long time.
Yeah, and we've talked about the soft disclosure that has been going on since probably, when did we figure that the Army manual, the field manual?
That was in the early 70s.
Yeah, early 70s. There's been a soft disclosure going on since then, and even like what General just said, if you really want to go back to Teddy Roosevelt, it's kind of been sort of going on since then.
I think it's been going on at least that long.
Yeah, they're not going to outright say it's there, but if it ever does come out, they're going to be like, well, look, we put it in the Army manual.
Right.
plausible.
Well, Noah brought up your human chimeras. In 2019, Congress tried to change hunting laws to insert near human chimeras in the text of the law, and it didn't go through, but they still tried it. What are they hinting at with near human chimeras?
I don't know. I don't even want to speculate on that one because in that situation, I think the truth would be scarier than anything we could imagine.
I'm going to be planning a show just on the whole Teddy Roosevelt theory in the near future. I want to talk to Ryan Paul Tremblay and see if he'll join. I've got some new kind of spins on that and a little bit of more information that's come to light. I definitely think we've got a lot to talk about with the Teddy Roosevelt thing. Max Hawthorne. He says, love the show. Seem to be many possible cryptid attacks are dismissed as bear attacks, but I've read accounts of people being found ripped limb from limb. Bears don't pull your limbs off. Exactly. You know, if it did, there would be teeth marks or claw marks. But people that have just been dismembered, that takes a tremendous amount of strength and opposable thumbs.
And, not for nothing, when you start looking at these maulings as they want to classify them as, what always happens when they say that? They always go out and they find a bear and they shoot that bear. Oh, well, we got the bear.
Yeah.
So
how do you know you got the bear? You got a bear.
Yeah, some innocent bear usually is going to get killed, blamed and killed because it killed a human. Now, obviously, we know for sure that it was a bear that killed the grizzly man because they got the bear and they did a necropsy on him and found that guy's remains and her remains inside that bear. But by and large, I don't think that happens all the time. I think they just say, well, yeah, we got the bear.
Robert D was talking about people that were killed in LBL. I know that the story he's talking about supposedly happened in 1979 and was witnessed by a guy that worked for Game and Fish. He witnessed from shore. It happened in Demumbers Bay, the same place where I played the dying rabbit call and almost got caught before I got back to my van. Again, not the brightest thing I've ever done in my life, and I damn sure won't do it again without having a couple of, shall we say, suitably inclined individuals with me with the sufficient means of protection. Eric Sob says there's a cryptid that's been taking people. It's 9 feet tall and called a what? A pull of.
Where's it at? I lost it.
It's Eric Sob's comment. I'm not sure what that is.
Has been. It's called a.
There was a woman.
I think autocorrect did him dirty on that one.
I think it did too. There was a woman right here in Missouri, just about 15 miles from where I'm sitting right now, just on the other side of Ozark, Missouri, who had been walking this trail for a long time. She used to take her dogs out there and walk the dogs all the time. Passerby said they saw looked like a person down, so they sent deputies out there. Turned out this woman had been mauled to death by what they claimed it was her own dogs. These are dogs that lived with her. If they were going to maul her to death, they could have done it in her house. Why would these dogs wait till they were on a walk to maul her to death? And when they arrived, the dogs were defending her body, trying to keep people away. So yeah, there was more going on there, but they never released the necropsy on the dogs either. They said the dogs did it and dropped it at that. But again, it's one of those, you can't Freedom of Information Act a police report on an open case. But if they knew what did it, why is it still open? Same thing with the Amazon driver. Case is still open.
Did you see what Fred just put up?
No, I didn't.
Here.
All right, it says I recently spoke to a former fish and game trooper, and it's always put down as possible bear attacks in most situations, regardless of evidence on the scene, if there's a scene even found. That does not surprise me.
Yeah, not possible, probable. They're not even saying possibly it was a bear. Most of the time they're saying probable bear attack, which,
Vicky Dennison says, DA, how come there was never any history about dogmen like there was? There is a lot of history with dogmen. Just the term dogman is new. We didn't first hear the term dogman until the late 90s, I believe it was.
98, I think.
But both Alexander the Great and the Roman Empire documented fighting creatures with the heads of dogs. They referred to them as the cynocephalus or the cynocephali. These are documented 2,000 years ago. They encountered and fought these things. Also, Marco Polo and Christopher Columbus both documented encountering these cynocephali creatures on islands during their travels. Saint Christopher is known as the dog-headed saint, and in Catholic iconography, most of the images of him show him with the head of a dog. While the phrase "dogman" is new, reports of these type of creatures goes back, thousands of years.
You know them as cynocephali, wolfman, werewolves,
right?
Anything, things like Rougarou, Loup-garou, any of that stuff. That is
Oolonga dog law.
Yeah,
that was the Cherokee word.
Hey, Marty.
And that dates back hundreds of years as well. That was before white settlers. So if they already had a word for a creature like that, it was already here.
Yep. So, and that's just like the term Bigfoot is not synonymous with that either. That was a phrase that a reporter in California coined about the logging camps being destroyed.
No, you're absolutely right. Cucullin, the story of Cucullin. But Robbie, right. Bigfoot didn't exist until Jerry Cruz, the article hit the newspapers in what was it, somewhere in Northern California in about 1957.
Yep.
But if you look at tribal,
the same area that the Patty film was made
very
in.
close. We get very close to it. But if you look at native tradition across the country, there's 100 different names for a Bigfoot type creature. And then you look across the planet, you've got the Alma, the Almasti, the Yeti, the Yeren, the Yowie. You've got dozens of different names for the same creature. The Barmanu in the Middle East. I mean, there are people all across the planet describing Orang Pendek, describing very similar characters. Casey Calloway says there's legends of dog-headed creatures over in the Middle East that go way back. There's also a place in northern India in the mountains up near the Himalayas where the local people claim that there are tribes of dog-headed people that live in the valley, and if you go up there, you won't come back.
Well, and
I watched a documentary on that.
The
explorers were like, "Oh, we don't really believe they're up there," but they didn't go.
Yeah. But there's still like Peru and places like that. There's still legends of were creatures like were jaguars and other kind of creatures too. That so it's not just wolves that are that type of creature. That every country's got some kind of, cryptid or story. Just like we say, all these things are based in some form of truth somewhere that somebody has seen something that started this. People didn't just make this kind of stuff up.
Real quick, I want to give a quick shout out. Marty from Nona Boss Continuum is in the chat tonight.
Yep.
Marty's getting close to that 1,000 mark over on her YouTube subscriptions. So folks, if you don't mind, I just posted the link to her channel. Go by and give her channel a like and subscribe. Let folks know about her content because she got some awesome content, and she deserves all the success. We want to see her, hit her stride. And while you're at it, we also noticed, Nova and I were talking earlier, that our analytics show that there is a great deal of our viewers, a significant quantity of our viewers that aren't subscribed to the channel. And I don't know if that's because YouTube's algorithm's kicking them out or they haven't. So please, if you're watching the show and you enjoy the content, please hit that like and subscribe. We would love to have you as part of the channels. You can support the channel by becoming a member, or you can just join for free. We would love to have you guys as part of the Ex MachiNation.
Yep, and what's really out there is about 460-ish, so we're getting close to the 500 mark. So,
yeah, and every one of those benchmarks helps. It gets you farther into the YouTube algorithm. Fred's got to head out. Dude, have a good one, dude. Thank you for popping by. I'll shoot you a message here in the next day or two. I would love to get you back on the channel. Kirsch says, what was the documentary DA watched about the dogmen and the crew that it didn't? I don't remember the name of the documentary. It has been a long time since I've watched it, but that detail is always stuck in my head. I'll see if I can find it. But it was a documentary about strange creatures in India. And I will see if I can hunt it up. I don't even remember what it was streamed on, but it was probably about 4 years ago when I watched it, because I watched a whole crap load of documentaries when I was laid up and couldn't hardly walk.
Jessica's just got in the house too. Hey, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica.
Y'all had a good show today.
Yeah, it was a good time. Had really enjoyed hanging out with Jessica on her show today. If you guys haven't subscribed to her channel, do so as well. She's got an awesome channel. It's called the Cryptid Huntress here on YouTube. I don't have the link handy, or I would throw it up there. Noah, if you can grab the Cryptid Huntress's link and put it in the chat, that would be awesome. Okay. Casey Calloway said, I missed that. I was just getting ready to read it and lost it. How many sightings were there? Just saw that it's back and it was Bigfoot. It may have been a dogman. Not sure how to answer that one. I'm missing some context.
Did you see what Thomas was asking? I'm putting it up on the screen now.
I have not heard about that one. But I have talked to people that were fishing along the shores of LBL on Kentucky Lake and had things try to get out to their boat. That area is creepy. It was an area south of, if I remember correctly, I think Kentucky Lake is on the. I want to say Kentucky Lake is on the west side. I can't remember off the top of my head. Casey Calloway says there's some stories in Afghanistan where people have seen dogmen wearing body armor and carrying blades. Yeah, that I actually used that in one of my books, the first Nightmare Hunter book. Yeah, there have been numerous stories of them wearing body armor, usually made of copper or brass. Nathan Finn says, I thought that was Dale Hollow Lake in Kentucky. If you can find any links to that head being found floating on a lake in Kentucky, please send it my way. Shoot it to me in an email at daroberts@daroberts.net, or if you've got me on Facebook, shoot me a message. I would like to dig into that some more. Well, if their hands work as well as ours, it's probably just a matter of time till they figure it out. But then again, their natural weapons are hard enough for us to overcome. Spy in the Sky says, you've heard about the fires in northwest Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle? Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to get, at the risk of getting political, and I will skirt up to the edge of that and not really jump into politics. But it's weird. With all of the things going on in Texas, with Texas kind of squaring off against the federal government, and then now suddenly there's some major wildfires, the second largest in the state's history in almost 180 years. Suddenly there's these massive fires. Seems a little odd to me. Timing is a little off, because it's you don't generally get wildfires in the winter. Usually in the very dry summers. Eric Saab says, what about the case of dogmen in Afghanistan killing Taliban fighters, and then some Bigfoots turn up and fight the dogmen? That doesn't shock me. I mean, we've got all kinds of really interesting stories coming out of Afghanistan. The red-haired giants, the Barmanu, and then you've also got other people that have reported seeing
Bigfoot's on the side
working
of the
with our
Taliban?
troops, which is pretty interesting.
So Bigfoot's on the side of the Taliban?
Bigfoot Taliban, no thank you. I think I made that joke in the Will Gray Eagle story in Afghanistan.
I think so too. Seemed like I remember you saying something like that.
Northwood says, is it possible that the government uses wildfires to to deal with cryptid problems? It's entirely possible. I mean, but the thing about it is those wildfires are very easily gotten out of hand, and then they lose, towns. They lose, hundreds of acres of farmland. They lose livestock. So if those were set deliberately, I hope whoever did it is held severely accountable, because people will lose entire herds, and that'll destroy people's livelihood and yeah, I hate to see that much damage done to livestock and homes.
There's so much we could go into in saying that, but
On what? Which one?
what we're just talking about.
Oh,
Guess
yeah.
draw that
Yeah,
wall.
we'll be good. We're going to try to avoid religion and politics, so do our best. But I still think that the timing is just a little weird. There's a comment. It says all the wildfires in Texas Panhandle now. Man, basically a werewolf-like monster isn't bad enough on its own. Seeing one wearing armor and carrying weapons, that's just wild. There's been reports of Bigfoot using weapons, from clubs to crude spears, to even bows and arrows in some accounts. Again, it's hard to say the authenticity or the accuracy of these encounters, but I would not rule it out. I mean, primates are intelligent. Primates are tool users, so.
Well, like we always say, look in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Chimpanzees use tools.
Mm-hmm.
Orangutans, gorillas. I mean, you've seen gorillas snap tree limbs off and smack them on the ground as a display of force and dominance.
Billy apes and white crude spears.
Yeah. So, I mean, if those do it, why is it so hard to believe that something like a Bigfoot could?
Yeah, it's
Or
not
does.
outside the realm of possibility. Casey Calloway says there's a story from a biologist of him shooting one in the head with a 45, and it just looks at him. If it shrugs off a 45 caliber round to the head, probably you ought to save one round for yourself, because clearly you're not doing enough damage. But I don't, even when I've been deer and elk hunting, headshots are tricky. Bone's thick, and if you're not hitting bone dead on, bullets ricochet all the time. I mean, I've seen deer with scars on their head where a round careened off their skull. I wouldn't risk trying to punch a skull unless I was sure of the shot. I would go for much softer tissues, because this whole area is real closely located to the skull, and even a non-hollow point is going to do a lot of damage to a throat.
Well, I mean, like you don't shoot a hog in the side of its shoulder,
right?
Because unless you got a huge round, because I've seen hog shot with 223 and 5.56, and it
not even slow them down.
Yeah, look over like, what the heck was that? And keep on going.
If I was going hog hunting, I'd probably take my M1 Garand. Just being honest, that 308 is going to get its attention. I'm 30-06, not 308.
30 caliber round of some variety.
Yeah, it's going to hit like a sledgehammer. And I don't care who you are or what you're on, that round's going to get your attention. Little Patty says, DA, have you heard of the Rakshasa? Do you know anything about them? Rakshasa comes from Hindu myth, India. They are a demon in their natural form that they tend to take on the appearance of a bipedal tiger. However, they can appear as anybody they want, and that's how they hunt. They will lure people in simply by impersonating somebody that they trust. So yeah, the Rakshasas have something they've been talking about for centuries, and they're definitely something I wouldn't want to run into. But they are a type of demon from Hindu folklore. I was looking to see if I missed any questions. So, what do you think about the missing 411? Do you think that's cryptid predation? Do you think it's something else?
Well, I tell you what, Johnny and I have been talking about, because he's still trying to catch up with our stuff here, so we don't, do something on our show that we've just covered or something like that. But he went back and listened to our show when we talked about the maps overlaying and all that stuff. So he did a deep dive on TikTok, and there's this TikTok creator called the Map Lady. I don't know if you've heard of her. I don't know if anybody in the chat's heard of her. But she is now talking about and saying the same stuff that me, you, and Noah were talking about on that show. When we were talking about overlaying the maps, she's doing that on TikTok, and she's got millions of followers.
Well, so we did it first.
Yeah, we did.
I wish we had millions of followers, but
true. But
what are we gonna do?
But the thing is that it's a notion that's catching on. It makes sense if you don't have to be a rocket surgeon. And yes, I know I said rocket surgeon. You don't have to be that to figure out those things line up. And I think that's what we said in the first. I don't think every single one of them do, but I think there are ones in the population. Just like, there's serial killers and messed up people in the human population. The animal kingdom has that same thing, because everybody, if you get 5 dogs, all 5 of them are going to have different personalities.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's like we always say, go back to what we know that's already in the natural kingdom. That's your baseline. And if it happens here, just like the adaptive camouflage theory that we've got, that's already in the natural world that we've seen and observed. So it's not a stretch of the imagination. And same thing with this. There are other animals that hunt and kill humans. Why couldn't some of these? That doesn't mean the entire species does it, but
right. I think Polides has his suspicions about what he thinks it is, but I agree with Bizzle A there. I don't think it's any one thing. I think there's a variety of contributing factors in the missing 411. Could some of it be serial killers? Very much so.
Yeah,
could some of it be cryptids? Yes.
Could some of it be that somebody just walked off into a huge hole that drops off into a cavern that nobody will ever find them again? Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Right.
But do I believe that some of these are due to cryptids? Yeah, absolutely. Do I believe that cryptids spend a lot of time underground? Yeah, I think that's why
they do too. Audacious Amber says, I wouldn't want 1 million followers because then you're going to get a lot of trolls. Right now, you have solid people. We do have an awesome audience, but we also have an awesome band of moderators, and trolls tend to disappear pretty fast, usually before I even have a chance to see their comments. So I like our chances. I think the more we share the channel, the more we're going to continue to grow the audience. But the moderators are damn good at weeding out the trolls. There was another comment. Roxanne Delgado says, DA, what was the name of the creature that attacked people in a town in India? There's a YouTube documentary short on it. It was a few years ago. Before that, that might have been the Rakshasa. I don't know if I know the video you're talking about, but the Rakshasa is definitely something that I would. It was known for waylaying travelers in remote places. Dave Neal says, big shout out to the mods. Absolutely. Big shout out to the mods. Hashtag DAX mods rock. You guys kick butt. Thank you so much. Noah says, always watching Wazowski. Always watching Wazowski. Always watching.
Yeah, they make it a lot easier on me and you.
Definitely. Thomas Geschwin says, have you noticed that the vast majority of disappearances happened between 2 p.m. and 8 a.m.? Does not surprise me. 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. A lot of disappearances happen right as the sun's about to go down, which is also strangely enough when the time of day when most predators are most active, right at twilight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's across the board, whether that's land, sea, air. I mean, birds of prey hunt at the same time that big predators on land and big predators in the water hunt.
Yeah. Casey Calloway says, are we making a mistake to just consider them animals? Should we not be considering them more equals, which makes them so much higher of a threat? I think just dismissing them as just a dumb animal is a mistake. I don't know how intelligent they are. I don't know if they're human intelligence or, like dolphins. Dolphins have been proven to be at least as smart as we are, if not smarter. But I don't know if the intelligence level would be equivalent to human or even in some areas, maybe beyond. Or we don't really know for sure exactly how smart they are. But to dismiss them and think they're just dumb animals, I think is suicidal or or just dumb.
I think I understand where he's going with that, but I don't think there's many people now. There's still people who don't know what they're talking about, but for the most part, most people nowadays realize there's no such thing as a dumb animal. People thought for years that sharks were stupid. All they did was eat, swim, and you heard the line in Jaws. All this thing does is eat, swim, and make little babies.
That's not true now.
That's been proven wrong for so long. Same thing with we didn't know how intelligent primates were. Nobody knew how intelligent that dolphins and killer whales were. I don't think anybody, when they say it's just an animal, like when I say it's just an animal, I'm not saying it's just a dumb animal. I'm saying it's a flesh and blood animal, meaning
right.
I don't believe
humans are animals too.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The level of intelligence is yet to be proven, but I think we would be idiots to underestimate it.
I mean, what is the vocabulary of a gray parrot, African gray parrot? Like what, 1,000 words or more?
Yeah, they're very intelligent.
So I mean, you can't look at that
like blackbirds and crows. Corvids are very intelligent. I believe Noah and I were talking the other day. I think it was a 7-year-old child. They decided that these things are as smart as, and that's a bird. A bird with a small brain. We're talking about an upright primate with a head bigger than ours. That thing's going to be smart.
Well, they've even talked about it now. You used to hear people talk about dinosaurs were stupid and they weren't intelligent, but they've done so things have progressed so much more as far as science and the things that they can prove and the things that they can study. There is, they're talking about things with the T-Rex that it was smarter than some of the mammals that we've got on this planet now.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody, when they say, we rephrase that, most people, when they say it was an animal, I don't think they mean, that old dumb animal that you heard back in the 80s.
I know some people that just a dumb animal is an apt description.
Yeah. Yeah, even Khan can say home in sign language.
K. Bauer says, I read somewhere that a wolf can do basic math. If you think dogs can't do basic math, you're crazy. Take 3 treats, put them in your pocket, and only give your dog 2 of them and see how long it takes them to figure out you're holding out on them.
They can spell too. I've watched videos where a woman holds up like the dog's name and she holds up 2 cards and the dog touches which card is next with the letter. It sequentially spells out its name. Like she'll hold up 2 letters and it'll touch which letter goes next, and she's putting it down, and then she'll hold up 2 more and it'll touch the one that's next.
Harley's got a pretty big vocabulary. There's quite a few words that you can tell he understands completely what that word means. And obviously he can't speak, but he understands when you say certain things. And then you've got those videos of people with dogs that can hit those little like Dance Revolution pads and spell out words.
My canine that I had when I was a canine handler, Quinna, her like when we were riding around, if I knew she needed to go take a bathroom break, I'd say, you need to take a break. Well, I started spelling it every time I was in the car and would take her out, say, you need to take a break. And then I would say, do you need to take a brake? Say it in the same tone. and she would just look at me. But when I would spell it right, she would go nuts. She knew the difference between me spelling it Break and Brake. That's how smart that dog was. She understood, because I sit here in the house, I could say, "You need to take a Brake," and she'd be looking at me like. But as soon as I spell break, start running to the door. You can't.
Lots of animals that are far more intelligent than people really realize. When we lived out off the farm out of north of Lebanon, there were deer that figured out how to open the gate to get into our garden. My dad had to change the type of wiring that he was closing the gate with because they figured out how to unlatch the gate and get in.
Well, how do animals figure out time of day? Animals, they know when it's time for you to come home. Because I can watch them on the cameras, Bucky and Cap. I can stop down the road and pull up the cameras, and they're both looking up over the wall, looking at the door, waiting for me to come in, because they know what time I come in the afternoons.
Dogs are smart. Animals are very intelligent.
Yeah.
So when we say animal intelligence, it's not really a shot at animals being dumb. It's that we don't know what level of intelligence cryptids have, and it could be very intelligent. Could be far more intelligent than we realize. Miss Naomi says, "Why can't they observe daylight savings time? Because they actually have sense. I don't know why we observe daylight savings time." I read a quote that was attributed to a Native American chief that said, only a white man can cut 2 inches off the top of a blanket and sew it to the bottom and convince himself he's got more blanket." I think that's pretty apropos. Now, I understand the need for daylight savings time in World War II when they were trying to give people a little bit more daylight time to go tend their victory gardens. We don't do that anymore. Not a lot of people put gardens out anymore. However, that's something I'm planning on doing when the weather starts getting good and warm. And for plenty of reasons, especially, we'll not go there.
Just another one of those senseless things that we still do, like taxes. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Don't get me started on that. I'll get up on a soapbox and start screaming.
Yeah.
Open Coloring says, "My dad could get animals to do all kinds of stuff." Animals are smart. Animals can learn a lot of things, a lot more than people give them credit for. I tell you, an animal that's very intelligent is a horse. Oh my God, horses are smart. Now, we had a horse that used to let himself out of the corral, and then he'd when my dad started like locking the fence down where he couldn't get it out, he would put his hooves on the fence and push it down and let the other horses out, and then he'd get out. I don't know if I missed anything. They even used to, make the joke about cowboys riding their horse to the bar and getting too drunk to navigate home and just letting the horse have its head, and it'd take them home. That's not uncommon, and that's not just because they've memorized the route. It's because they know where they're going. Open Coloring Book says, "My mom trained our rabbits to use a litter box." I've known people that have had rabbits as indoor pets, and they were litter box trained. We've got so many incidents anymore of them reporting strange deaths as wild dog attacks, or they'll just unknown canine, like out there in Meeker, Colorado, when some of those cattle, they found unknown canine DNA on the wounds. What is that? What's unknown canine? Because like Robbie was saying, with modern DNA technology, we pretty much identified every canine species in North America. Or even if they got one that's a mix, they can identify that it's this much of this dog or this much of this dog. You can do canine DNA swabs just like you do for people doing Ancestry.com. You can take a swab from your dog and send it in, and they'll tell you exactly what the percentages of your dog's species is. And I don't need to spend that kind of money to know a mutt's a mutt. But dogs are awesome, so I don't necessarily need to know their whole pedigree. But I love dogs to death. They're my favorite. Audacious Hammer says, "What about the law that you can't shoot human-like animals?" Yeah, they tried to slip that in back in, I mean, it was 2019. It was just right before COVID. And they tried to slip in new wording into hunting laws, talking about near human chimeras and making certain things off limits to hunting. But then again, a lot of states have already passed legislation. I know Florida's got a law in place. I think Washington State's got laws in place that make it illegal to hunt a Bigfoot creature. Oklahoma went the other direction. They put up a $3 million bounty on one brought in alive. But there are lots of laws going into place to protect these creatures. And if people aren't, if the government really says they don't exist, why do they bother making laws? Because that's government's not big. Well, they are big on wasting money, especially when it's not theirs. But it's a waste of legislators' time to pass laws for something that doesn't even exist. Why bother to put that into law?
I think a lot of it has to do, well, I won't say a lot, but I think some of it is, like we talked about earlier, the plausible deniability. They want to slip these things in and say the little things here and there, so they've always got that out to say, we've been telling you,
right?
But it's just enough to where it's almost like Pilates when he's doing his thing and he comes right up to the edge of saying he thinks Bigfoot did it, but he never actually says it was Bigfoot.
I think if you could get him to just open up and speak candidly, I think that's pretty much what he would say.
Yeah.
He was a Bigfoot researcher before he started the Missing 411. I really think that's what he believes it is.
Well,
and I think Bigfoot is a contributing factor to it. I really do.
But as Marty will attest, because she was standing beside me when I tried to get him to talk to me, he did not want to talk. And I mean, I get it. He probably has hundreds upon hundreds of people coming up to him at every one of these conferences and saying, this and asking him a million different questions and things like that. And I get it. You probably get tired of that. But, you got to handle it a little bit different than that.
Yeah. Casey Calloway says, could there be some other entity using the appearance? Could there be some other entity using the appearance of Bigfoot or Dogman just to stay hidden? It's possible. I mean, like Tex from Texas Front Porch was saying that, it's possible that some descriptions of Bigfoot with having glowing red eyes could be demonic. I don't know. I honestly don't know. So, I wouldn't say at this point, without us having definitive proof, one way or the other, we can't rule anything out. Oh, sorry. Got a tickle in my throat.
Well, I brought this up to William one time on one of his shows. We got talking about the Mothman, and I said, think about all the descriptions that people give about Mothman. What other thing does that kind of remind you of if you really sit back and think about it? It reminds me a lot of a vampire. The description of dark wings or a long cloak type thing, red eyes, mesmerizing feeling, not remembering a lot of stuff.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, does that mean that all these Mothman sightings are of a vampire? No, but it just kind of, it's one of the things that makes you say,
Well,
who
it's
knows?
one of those things. One of those things that it could be. Some of the sightings were mistaken to be that as opposed to something else. Kind of like I think that a lot of dogman sightings could be mistaken Gugway and vice versa.
Mhm.
Nona Boss says FWC actually told me that someone put it in the pamphlet as a joke and to test people if they know their hunting laws. I'm calling BS on that explanation. I totally agree. That's not something that they would put in there just as a joke.
No.
And then you've got other government agencies that are doing things that are just unexplainable otherwise. We've mentioned it before. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources released a series of videos on what to do if you encounter the Ohio grassman. And when I first heard about it, I thought, this is going to be tongue in cheek. It's going to be a joke. It's not. They're serious videos. And they're not the only ones doing stuff like that. We're seeing more and more trailheads marked with official signage from the Parks Department and Department of the Interior warning people of possible Bigfoot habitat. So these are starting to appear in some really bizarre places.
Well, I don't remember what was that, but remember I sent you that flyer months ago from wasn't Ohio, but it was some other state that had something out on it about don't feed Bigfoot. If you see
Yeah,
him,
that was from a trailhead in Idaho, if I remember
Idaho.
correctly.
I couldn't remember the state, but it was Idaho. I mean, that's not even a place that really we talk about much as having a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Why would they have that on their trailheads?
Greg House has a good point. How many states deny having panthers, cougars, and other animals? My
All of
cousin
them.
and I were out coon hunting and saw a black panther kill one of the coon dogs. We saw it with our own eyes. And when we reported it to the Department of Conservation, they told us to our faces that we were mistaken, that it was just a regular mountain lion. And we're like, no, we're telling you, this thing was black. And they're like, no, you're mistaken. It was just a regular mountain lion. After we had literally watched it kill the dog.
So what's the takeaway from all this? In my opinion, you can't just break this category or break these down into, oh, this is just a Bigfoot or just a dogman.
Right.
There's so much more. I mean, that's kind of like saying, yeah, there's cars in the world.
Right.
There's Fords, there's Chevys, there's Nissans, Toyotas, and in each one of those have got different, different makes and models and brands. I mean, when you look at automobiles or vehicles, however you want to look at it, then you start breaking them down by maker, then you start breaking them down by model. I think you could do the same thing with some of these cryptids, Sasquatch, Dogman, things like that. But then breaking them down even further as, Genoskwa, Gugway, Shiatanka, Yowie, Yaren.
Right.
Because every one of them are probably going to be different just because of what area they're in.
Right.
Just like killer whales, different killer whales on different parts. They're in every major ocean in the world, but every one of them feeds on a different type of main food source. Some
So
hunt
there are going to be
seals.
genetic differences in them. Same thing with black bears. Look at black bears here in the United States. East Coast black bears and West Coast black bears, while they're the same species and they could interbreed, they look very different.
Yeah. And just look at the brown bear. The brown bear consists of Kodiak, grizzly, brown bears,
coastal brown, the interior brown.
Every one of those are brown bears, but they're all different sizes. They all live in different areas of the country. They all have different dietary favorites or whatever. but there's still a bear. There's still African elephants and Indian elephants,
Right.
Siberian and Bengal tigers, and it's easy for us to look at it because those are known species. But when you start trying to apply the same logic that's already there, that's the groundwork's already laid down for us, you try to start applying that logic, and people are like, "Oh, no! I don't understand the pushback on stuff like that."
Right.
Why is it so hard to apply that? It's already there. Don't reinvent the wheel.
We need more people in this field, in the cryptozoology and weird happenings field, who are willing to admit they don't know everything. And there are way too many people in this field that if you disagree with them even a little bit, oh my God, you think it's the end of the freaking world. And when you point out you don't have all the answers, then they get pissed off because they think it's their theory and everyone else is wrong. And I'm the first one to admit, folks, there are no experts in this field. Roxanne says, DA, which types of Bigfoot are the most dangerous? Well, I would say definitely the top of that list would be the Gugway, and the variants they have in Alaska, the ones they refer to as the Nantinaq, the hairy man. Just extremely aggressive. But when you look at bear species, the farther north you get, the more they are reliant on meat as their primary food source. Black bears down here in the southern part of the United States, they will eat meat. They do eat meat. They'll scavenge meat. They'll even hunt, but they're primarily eating berries and roots and plants and whatever they find. They're just browsing constantly. Get a little farther north, brown bears, they eat more meat, but they will still eat roots and berries and whatever else they come across. You get farther north yet, get up to the polar bears, and those just eat meat. That's it. They eat meat. I think it's the same thing with Bigfoot type creatures. The more rugged the environment, the more they're going to rely on protein as their primary ingredient for their diet. Because when you've got any type of mammal that has to survive in that cold of a climate, it takes a lot more calories to generate the body heat to keep them from freezing to death, let alone to thrive. So if when we get up to these more hostile, more cold environments, I think we're definitely going to see these things are more and more reliant on meat and far more aggressive. Kirst, you may have a point there. I think that there are some people out there that are deliberately keeping dissension going in the cryptid community and spreading disinformation. I think that there are people out there. I don't know who they are. But I think that there are people out there that deliberately try to keep the community, and I use that term loosely, keep it fractured, keep people arguing, and keep credibility low.
We said that last year sometime. I think we were talking about that, about what we thought that some people might be plants that come in here and just make the most nonsensical claims that you've ever heard on purpose,
and offers zero proof. And to me, the wilder the claim, the more proof is required. You can't just say, I've got 25 Bigfoot that live in my backyard, and they come in the house all the time and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and have frat parties in the basement. Yeah, you can't make that kind of claim and expect people to just accept it at face value, because you're going to sound crazy. If you've got 25 of them living in your backyard and coming into your living room to watch the big screen with you, you didn't snap a single picture at any point. You don't have a selfie. Well, like, hey, this is me and Chuckles. When you just say, hey, I've got 1,000 Bigfoot that call me their best friend, and I've been elected into the tribe, and I speak 17 Bigfoot languages. Yeah, you can't make that kind of claim and expect anybody to take you seriously. But then when they go, oh, but I'm not allowed to take any pictures, or I don't have any proof, I don't even have a hair strand to back any of that up. You just can't make spectacular claims like that and expect people to take you at face value. I
was raising dogman.
Yeah, maybe they're telling the truth. But the thing about it is, if I had 5 Bigfoot in my living room, I would have found a way to got a picture. or I would have been like, "Hey, can I have some hair here?" Or would have just picked up after him. There'd have been DNA samples. There would have been something, but just popping up and saying, I ordered pizza the other day, and 6 of my Bigfoot buddies stopped by, and we watched the Super Bowl and ate pizza together. But no, I don't have any proof of that. You just, I'm sorry, I'm going to come to soapboxing a little bit, but you just can't say crap like that and expect people to believe it.
To answer Kay Bauer's little comment, he said he just pictured Bigfoot in a toga like John Belushi.
Toga.
He is not just randomly pulling scenarios out of his. That is something that was actually told that I heard with my own ears. An actual story that somebody told.
Well, I changed a few little details, but for the most part, that's based on something somebody actually said.
Not many details.
And some of the other parts was stuff that was actually told to me and Robbie too. So, yeah.
So that's what he's talking about, though. The more fantastical. When you saw me laughing when he was saying that, I was laughing because I'm sitting there thinking about, especially when he brought up the taking the pictures, because I'm not going to go into that part of it. He knows what I'm talking about, or he knows what I'm talking about. But it floors you when these people make these claims.
And I wonder why nobody takes us seriously.
Yeah, but it doesn't just hurt them. It hurts all of us that are out here seriously wanting to find out the truth behind this and have people take it seriously. But then you got stuff like that, and people are like, yeah, you believe in that? Yeah. I'm going to get on my soapbox if I ain't careful.
First, I know we don't know each other in person, but I think I may know who you're referring to there. And I'm not going to call anybody out. I'm not going to make any claims about anybody. I'm not going to speak disparagingly about any person. I'm just saying, if you're going to make really grandiose claims like that, you're going to have to give me more than just, well, take my word for it. I know what I'm talking about. No, I'm not. Robbie, let's say there's a crime committed, a burglary, and you show up and I'm the victim of the crime. And you come to my house and the house has been the door kicked in and stuff's trashed all over the place. And I tell you that I don't have any video or pictures, but it was 5 Bigfoot kicked in, roughed me up, stole my VCR, and and basically slept in my bed, ate all my porridge, and then ran off when they heard the sirens coming. But it was Bigfoot. I saw him. You would have my ass on a 96-hour psych evaluation so fast it would make my head spin, and rightly so. You just cannot make claims like that and just expect people to go, "Oh my God!" And then what happened?
And Thomas, I know exactly who he's talking about because I told you to watch his videos. You remember that? You remember who I'm talking about? He's right. I'm not sure what that guy's deal is, Thomas. I don't know if he really believes some of that stuff or if he really is just trolling and trying to get views. If he's just trolling trying to get views, he's a genius. Otherwise, he is messed up in the head because there's more than just that video. He has got a ton of videos. I used to. I don't know if his channel's still up or not. I used to watch that just when I needed a laugh. I used to watch that guy's videos. It's unexplainable. And the one he's talking about where says he got raped by the female Bigfoot. Oh my goodness! Did you ever go watch it?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, there were points I would pause it and take my glasses off and wipe my eyes.
Well, did you see the one where he made the big animatronic dogman and put up in his and tried to play it off like he was really up there, and this thing had really broke in. Hats off to him if he really is trolling it because he's
I honestly think he's got to be doing that just to be funny. I can't. It's like There's a certain show you and I have talked about that has a bunch of hillbillies that go out and look for Bigfoot. I'm not going to call it by the name of the show. Everybody probably know who I'm talking about anyway. But even the guys that are on that show have got to be laughing because there's no way even they're taking it seriously. You cannot take that show seriously in any way, shape, or form.
Marty, I will find it again and I will let you know what it is. It's been okay. I think I remember. I'll let you know. I have to check see if it's still up. If it is, you'll enjoy it. You'll get a kick out of it.
Casey Calloway is right. That kind of stuff gives this whole subject a black eye. It's kind of sad. Yeah. I agree. And whether those people are being deliberately asked by certain government agencies to do this kind of thing to discredit the rest of us, or if they're just, off their freaking meds looking for attention, I don't know. Could it be deliberate? Yes, it could very well be deliberate, but it does make anybody who's trying to do any legitimate kind of research look like an idiot. They just lump us all in together and say, oh, you believe in Bigfoot? You're one of those whack jobs that, thinks he saw Elvis at the Piggly Wiggly 7 times last week. It's just, it does more damage to the field than it does good. And it's bad, but a lot of these people get a lot of attention, and that's what really wrecks the field of cryptozoology and what prevents it from being taken seriously, because there are people doing serious, legitimate research. There are scientists that are actual scientists that are starting to put their own name, their own credibility, Dr. Meldrum being one of them. There are people that are putting their scientific credentials on the line for this. So, Dr. Jane Goodall said she believes that there's a North American ape, that Bigfoot is likely to exist. So there are people within the scientific community that are starting to get into this field, but
Grover Grant supported till the day he died.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the other, Dr. Bindernagel. And there was another one. I can't remember his name. I've got a couple of his books, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Glenn says Elvis only goes once a week. Yep. It takes him so long to go through peanut butter, all his peanut butter and bananas. But it's, the question originally was, do we think that there are people that are deliberately trying to sandbag the field? And yes, I do. And I think it's a lot from people like that. And I also think that there may be a concerted effort to try to keep this field fragmented as possible. You guys know from watching us on many occasions that Robbie and I really don't jump into the woo camp. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that what these people are experiencing did not happen to them. No way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is it just hasn't happened to us. And we look for as logical of explanation for things as we can until such time as logic is out the window, until we have exhausted all other options. Just like when we were both at work in an active case as cops. If you showed up at a crime scene and found the door was locked from the inside and deadbolted, all the windows are intact, and there was no way for somebody to get in, yet the person was murdered, your first response can't be must have been a portal. You just can't go there. You've got to go, well, maybe the killer had a key. Maybe the killer knew a way out that we haven't found yet. There are lots of logical explanations that you have to go through before you start getting to the more farther and farther out there.
Yeah, you can't start at point A and go directly to point Z. You have to, or it doesn't make any sense. And when you get to point Z and it doesn't pan out, you can't back up. Right. You got to start at point A and work through B through Z before you make that's the way you have to investigate. And that's what DA's saying. A lot of these, they're like, oh, well, that's it. Well, okay, what's your reasoning? Because I saw it. I mean, DA knows this. I had an argument with a particular person of that persuasion, and he said, you can't convince me that they didn't do this. I said, Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. Or he said, you can't argue with me. I'm pretty sure I can. And it took me about 10 minutes to shut him up, where he was just pouting and couldn't say anything else to me.
Yeah, and the cases where people are talking about Bigfoot going through portals, again, not saying portals aren't possible. We know CERN opened one with the super collider, so portals do exist. They are possible. However, there are no animals in the animal kingdom that open portals. None we've ever documented. Not saying it's impossible. It's just never ever been found in the animal kingdom. There are no primates that do it. There are no humans that can do it. You know, that's never been a documented case of an animal being able to open a portal. CERN did it with tremendous amounts of energy, but no animal's been able to do it. Not going to say that they can't, but the far more likely explanation on why something seemed to just disappear before your eyes, look at the Freeman footage when we had MK Davis on the show. Freeman was filming a large black Sasquatch, and you could tell what it was. It stops in front of a tree and vanished. And it didn't go through a portal. It didn't step inside the tree and disappear. It didn't turn invisible. It didn't cloak. It stopped in front of the tree and picked up the color of the light around it. And it just seemed to disappear before your eyes. And when he starts getting closer, he's still filming. He has not taken the camera off of it. When it realizes he's still coming, it takes off again. And as soon as it moves, you can see it again.
Swope hit the nail on the head.
Good point. If they're capable of that, and let's say the missing 411, and what we're talking about tonight is, do cryptids prey on people? We believe they do, and we're not saying it's a large percentage. We're saying that there is a percentage. It could be a bigger percentage than we realize, or it could be a very small percentage. But if there's any percentage at all where cryptids are preying on people and they have the ability to walk through portals, there is nothing we could do to ever stop them from killing us all.
No. I mean, we've talked about that. You know, if they could do that, they would be in our rooms right now.
Right. They would walk into your living room and that's it. You're dead. And there would be nothing you could do to stop them. No firearm would work. Nothing ever. Roxanne says, yeah, I watched a show. He was investigating missing and said Pilates and Bigfoot research are insane. He said they do not exist. 5 minutes of him and shut the show off. You know, the thing about it is there are too many people that are just absolute naysayers. And Robbie and I talked about this when we did the show about sharks. It's like walking up to the ocean with a teaspoon and dipping out a teaspoonful of water and looking at it and go, sharks don't exist because there's none in this spoon. That's crazy. Do you know how many hundreds of millions of acres there are on this planet that we haven't explored? There, in the United States alone, U.S. national parks make up for 88 million acres of unbroken timberland, and that's not counting stuff like in Alaska that's not part of any national forest, stuff that in British Columbia and the northern parts of Canada that are all extremely heavily forested and have no settlers in that area. There is that we know less about the bottom of our own ocean than we know about the surface of the moon. We have not fully explored this planet. We like to think we have, but we have not. New animals and new species are cataloged every day, and once in a while we still find something big. Robbie, I can't hear you, bud. You lost your sound. Robbie, be right back, folks. He reached the point in the show where his sound randomly dies. Casey Calloway says, hey, now Gray Eagle went through a portal. That's true, but that's also fiction. That's a work of fiction. But again, you know, I have not denied that portals, the portals exist. Like I said, CERN has been able to open portals. I will not ever claim that the portals don't, or they're impossible. It's when there's Robbie. It's when we start discussing other factors where portals are their first line of defense. I'm not ever going to say it's impossible. What it is highly improbable. We are far more likely that there is a logical explanation on why this thing disappears. And if you watch that MK Davis episode where we were showing that Freeman footage, it's painfully obvious what happened. It's adaptive camouflage. It's the clear hair shafts that researchers are finding all across the United States. When those
Yep.
clear hair shafts are placed in front of something with a background, a color background like green or even other brighter colors, it picks up and reflects those same colors. It's natural adaptive camouflage. Robbie, what were you going to say before you got your silenced?
I was just going to say, we talked about the Mammoth Cave system that now they're saying goes from Maine to New Mexico?
Yeah, southern New Mexico, Carlsbad Caverns.
And there's 4% of that that's been explored?
Probably less than that, because if it goes that far,
that's what they say. That's the number that they give you is 4%. So what is 4% of a stretch from, and let's just say a straight line. Let's not talk about how far up or down it goes. Let's just say a straight line from Maine to New Mexico. What would 4% of that be?
Not much.
Not much at all. And they're saying if they're saying 4%, it's probably more like what DA was saying, probably maybe like 1.5 to 2%.
Right.
How much could be going on under
that we have no clue about?
Have no clue about.
Well, let's just take the state of Alaska alone. Alaska is so much unbroken wilderness. There's so many square miles of unbroken wilderness that if you as a person were had the ability to explore and investigate 1 square mile a day, 1 square mile, that's a lot of area when you're walking through the woods and through broken terrain. If you were capable of exploring 1 square mile a day, and that's a lot of ground when you're on foot, if you were capable of exploring 1 square mile a day, it would still take you in excess of 250 years to explore Alaska.
And
yet we're supposed to take it on faith that there's nothing out there we're not aware of.
Well, what did we say? How big is Antarctica?
Right. Antarctica is massive.
And we have no idea what's underneath all that frozen ground and ice.
Right. Swope says, I think the Congo's like that as well. Yeah, we've only explored a fraction of the Congo. The Congo is a massive unbroken jungle. It spans the width of multiple countries. The Congo is huge. Same thing with the Amazon. Yes, we are encroaching on the Amazon. There are more and more of that rainforest that is harvested all the time. But we don't really fathom just how big that place is. There are tribes in the Amazon basin that have never seen outsiders. Ever.
And like you said about us knowing more about the moon, the surface of the moon, than we do the ocean floor. Put that in perspective. You could hide the Himalayan mountain range in the Marianas Trench.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that takes...
Hi, Jack. Welcome to the show.
That takes some big brain to think about how deep that is and how much land, how much area that is that you could take the Himalayan mountain range and hide it inside the Mariana Trench.
Yeah. So, and there's only a handful of people on the planet that have been to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And it is so inhospitable and so difficult to reach. Well, look what happened when somebody basically built a mini sub in their garage and tried to get to the Titanic. And that's what, maybe a third of the depth of to the bottom of the Marianas?
If even that.
Did you know that Josh Gates was scheduled to go with that?
He took a tour of it and he said,
yeah, he took a tour and did a practice dive with it in like 100 feet of water and was like, nope, I'm good. Thanks, but no.
Which should have told the people who were, because if Josh Gates don't want to do it, because that's a crazy son of a gun.
No, it's got a good point. We're talking about an intelligent species that is actively trying to not be found. It would be, okay, let's say, for example, Robbie lives in a small town in South Carolina. I have never been there. Okay. Let's say I go to the little town he lives in. I'm not going to name the town because I don't want to like out him. But let's say I just get in my car and I drive out there and I tell Robbie, you go hide somewhere in town and I'm going to find you. It might take me years to find him because he knows the area and I don't. And that's just in a little town. Now, let's say Robbie comes out here to Missouri to hang out with me, and we go to the Mark Twain National Forest and say, we're going to go find us a Bigfoot today. The Mark Twain National Forest is 3.5 million acres of unbroken forest. What are the odds we're going to walk out there in the woods, unless this thing wants to be found? What are the odds we're going to walk up and go, yep, there he is, saw him? We're not, and not unless we're really, really damned lucky. We might hear one. We might even hear one walking around us. But if it doesn't want to be found, it's not going to be found.
Yeah, and we've said it before. If we can teach humans and special forces units to disappear like that, and believe me, I got friends and know people, so does DA, that were in special forces units, that if they want to not be found in the woods, you ain't gonna find them. I've had big shots say, yeah, ain't none of them special forces could hide from me. And I'm like, I bet you a paycheck that you couldn't find them.
I grew up running around the woods of Missouri. I've been in and out of the woods most of my life. I have been very successful at deer hunting. I've generally brought in more than I've missed. And the thing is anybody that's deer hunting will tell you there's sometimes you just get skunked. You just don't see one. You know, they're either not in the area or you're just not really watching well enough to see them. But, you know, there are times you just get skunked. I had a buddy I went to high school with who was an Army Ranger. And we went out in the woods one time and I was giving him crap saying, yeah, you Rangers aren't that bad. I could find you out here in the woods. He goes, oh, yeah, prove it. And I turned around and that son of a gun was gone. And I'm pretty damn good in the woods. I can track people. I can, not as well as Robbie. Robbie's a train tracker, but I can track. I followed game for miles. I didn't find a damn thing. And later when I'm heading back at our camp, he said, you could have stepped on me about 3 times. And that's just a guy that was trained how to do it.
Well, just like when we went to Joe Ball, and you knew where I was at when I crawled in that, as Greg coined it, that bird nest on its side.
That little blind.
You knew what I was wearing, where I was at. You and Noah both. Y'all went 13 feet away, probably.
Yeah, it was less than 10 yards, and I couldn't see you anymore. And if I hadn't known you were there, and I was coming down that game trail, I'd have walked right up on top of you before I even knew you were there.
Yeah, and that was not me even trying to conceal myself. I was just kind of basically there on all fours, just kind of hunched over. That wasn't even me trying to hide.
And that somebody just mentioned that the last few minutes of Harry and the Hendersons.
Yep.
That is a great example of adaptive camouflage. They were not hidden. They weren't. They were just told to stand still, and they did. They stood absolutely still while they were filming that scene. And when they started moving, suddenly you could see them all. But when they were sitting still, you couldn't see one of them. And those were just actors.
Yeah, I think that was Brian that said that. Brian was on Marty's show last Monday night. But yeah, that was before CGI. That was before any of this special type stuff. That was just them in those suits and the director saying, "Don't move." And even the kids that were in the suits stood there and didn't move. And even to this day, if you go back and watch that, knowing that they're there, you still can't see them.
Yeah, you still got to be really looking to even notice they're there.
You might catch 1 or 2 of them, but you can't see all of them. Just because
I've slowed that video down a number of times and went, oh my God, I didn't even see that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've grown up in and around the woods, but I've had times when I was walking through the woods and kicked up a doe that was crouched down in the bushes 5 feet away from me, scared the living crap out of me that this doe would just pop up and take off. That's a brown pants, almost had a heart attack kind of moment.
Well, how many times
it's happened? I've walked literally up on top of.
How many times we said that? How many deer have you ever shot because that you didn't see move first.
Right. Something moves. Either they're turning their head, they're twitching their
Or
ears,
twitching the ear,
they take a
twitching the
step.
tail.
It's that little bit of movement that gives them away. When they are standing stock still, they are damned hard to see, even when they're against colors that are different than their coat.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
Greg's
like
got a good point. One key to picking out a deer in the woods is training yourself to look for parts of a deer, not an entire deer. And that's not easy to do. That is really not easy to do.
That's the same thing that they teach in or taught us in tracking, is don't look for the face, look for an eye. Right. Don't look for the arm, look for a finger. Because the human eye and the human brain automatically looks for abnormalities. Anything that does not go in nature. That's why when they teach you how to do camouflage, they teach you to do the lines to break up your silhouette, because your silhouette's what gives you away. Your eyes, your nose. That's why you're taught to do your camouflage the way you do, because it's got to break your silhouette up. Right. So if you've got that adaptive camouflage built into you, i.e. born with it, you're born with a ghillie suit, you ain't got to worry about that. We have to worry about that because this does not fit in nature. This is not made for camouflage.
Arkansas Hog Hunter says, I've had deer come up and sniff my face while in the woods many times. One deer I got out of my Uncle Buddy's place, I was in my deer stand and I was just on high alert, looking in the field out ahead of me, looking for any sign of movement. I wasn't moving. I wasn't making any sound. And I kept hearing this rustling in the leaves. And I'm not wanting to whip around and, make any sudden movements. So I'm very slowly turning my head and, looking around as much as I could find. And I hear it again, and it's directly under me. And I lean over and look down, and there was about a 6-point buck right underneath my deer stand eating acorns. He was literally right underneath me. And I very carefully, I was hunting with my British 303, and I pointed it down and waited till I was perfectly lined up. And he brought his head up and looked around and drove him like a tent peg. But he was literally 6 feet from me, and I didn't know it until he was on top of me.
Well, yeah, and we talked about it before. How can, a 100-pound deer or 120-pound deer be so quiet, and a 3-pound squirrel sounds like an elephant coming through the woods?
Yes, squirrels can make a hell of a lot of racket, and if you piss one off, he will ruin your hunt.
Mm-hmm.
He'll sit there and make barking noises and drop acorns and chitter and get everything else moving around and pointing out that you're there. Squirrels can ruin your hunt if they want to. Folks, I hope you guys are enjoying the polls tonight. My son Noah is doing those. I think they really add a lot to the interactive part of the chat. I'm really glad he's doing those. So that's 100% Noah. He's doing a good job on those. I really like them.
Good job, Noah. I got a little smile out of him, I think.
Big Gabe's says it's like that hunter that was laying down in a ghillie suit looking for deer when a stick was thrown at him from behind. When he turned around, he saw a female Bigfoot staring at him. Yeah, stuff like that. That's not unheard of. I mean, we like to think we're the masters of our domain. We're not. Once you get most people away from town, out into the woods, they're 100% out of their element. And even people that have spent their entire lives, hunting, fishing, backpacking, camping, even people that have spent their entire lives can't hold a candle to what one of these creatures is capable of. They are born to it. I saw Bigfoot driving a Cadillac limo with Elvis in the back. Hope he had BB King with him too.
I just think that getting back to, I don't guess we kind of did veer off topic, but we kind of stayed around the same type. But to get back to, whether they're hunting us or not, I think if they wanted to hunt us for sport or for food, I think we've established that that's not something that we could do much about. I mean, it would
Right.
they could
I
do
think
pretty
it
much.
all comes down to motive and opportunity.
Yeah. Fear and air, and there goes the air.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you see that question, Rob? Yeah, I've seen that video.
My thoughts on that are, his department did what I expected him to do. But can't blame him. They hung him out to dry. But I mean, he kind of brought it on himself.
First off, an acorn hitting the hood of a car sounds nothing like a gunshot. Second of all, when he spun around and saw that the windows were still intact on his vehicle, he should have known right then and there that he did not take fire from that vehicle.
How long
Even if he did think it was a gunshot, it wasn't coming from inside that vehicle. He didn't assess he did not eat a big bowl of OODA loops that day. I can tell you that. He did not assess the situation in any way, shape, or form. He just started shooting, and
he just reacted.
Yeah, he just
poorly.
reacted
very poorly.
Very poorly. Let's just say either something very bad happened with his judgment or his training was somewhat lacking. Because there's no way he should have opened fire without confirming that was a gunshot.
How long had he been in? Did they say? I didn't see it.
I didn't catch that part. I think supposedly he was, ex-military. So you would think he would, after a deployment, he would.
Sorry, Doc, I'm gonna have to say this. Was he Air Force? Maybe. I can say that because
he might have been office personnel.
I can say that because Doc did make this joke at class. He said, "Do you know what a weapons malfunction is in the Air Force?" And we're all like, "What?" He goes, "Our chair rolls over our mouse cord." Gotta love him.
Roxanne says, I was about 8 years old in Liberty, Missouri. Saw a dogman in a cut down cornfield across from my home, and it was in city limits. There are increasing numbers of cryptid sightings in not so rural areas, not necessarily like in downtown, but on the outskirts. There was a town in Oklahoma. I can't remember exactly where, but they were having trouble with Bigfoot creatures coming in and raiding trash cans. They were having to increase lighting and patrols just to try to keep Bigfoot from raiding the trash cans in town. So it's not uncommon for these things to actually come into an urban setting. And we are seeing more reports of that. And it's pretty terrifying, especially if they are losing their fear of us.
Well, we've said before that, we were out of the woods for 3 years. And
Imeria, she had a great comment. Me and my wife and Noah, we met them a couple years ago at the conference in Tennessee. Her and her husband, Kevin, he's a vet, by the way. Thank you for service, Kevin. Kevin has seen a Bigfoot here in the Uwharrie National Forest, North Carolina. I believe I've had a close encounter of sorts with a dogman. I've taken pictures of footprints after my friend's dog got taken. That footprint that you and I found, well, you and Noah found initially and then showed me that we found in Joe Bald, that son of a gun was a canine print, 6.5, 7 inches wide. That is a big print.
Yep.
Noah says, Dad, Robbie and I were definitely being shadowed by a dogman at Joe Bald that night. Yeah, I saw the eye shine about 7 feet up in the brush.
And the print was bigger than that.
Considerably bigger than that. I'm dying to go back down there. I got a new camera that has night vision on it. I wish I'd had that camera that night because I think I would have got some really good footage.
Too.
Robbie's ready. Brian says, thank you, Robbie, for joining the chat the other night. I'm always honored when experts like you and DA ask questions for me. Helps me learn even more. Brian, there are no experts, and anybody that tells you otherwise is straight up lying to you. There are no experts in this field. And that's the sad thing, is there are too many people that read their own press releases and think they are. We don't have all the answers. We've got a lot of theories, we've got a lot of ideas, and we've got a lot of things that are based on things we've observed, but there are zero experts in this field.
And yes, Noah, I agree with what you just said. Brian, you did a really good job on that show the other night. Matter of fact, I was going to talk to DA about getting you on our show sometime. He's got some really good stories. He's done some pretty good experimentation for about, if I may be right or wrong on the time frame, but I'm gonna say about 2 years, I think is what you were saying, Brian. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he did like solid experimentation on a group for about 2 years or more.
Sounds awesome. We definitely need to get him on the show.
Yeah. It was really, I was really impressed with it.
Wyatt Estes says, I've got a photo of a Bigfoot footprint close to a dumpster. I don't know if y'all have seen this. I know we've talked about it on the show before, but this was taken right outside the cabin that Annette and I had in outside Gatlinburg, Tennessee. That's one of my business cards on the ground next to it. From the beginning of the impression to the tips of the toes, what did we measure that out at, Robbie? Like 21.5 inches?
I want to say it was over 18. I don't know the exact, but we took Tyler's, my soon-to-be son-in-law. We took his shoe, which was 18, and we put one of your business cards beside it, because I had one of your business cards too, so it was exactly for what you had there. Mm-hmm. And 3 of your business cards were almost as big as his foot. So we're going to say that was probably an inch or 2 bigger than Tyler's foot. So whatever a size 18 tapes out to be, I want to say it's probably like 20-ish.
Yeah, it's a big track, and there was so much definition in this track. You could see the individual toes, you could see the heel print. It was 1.5 inches deep in rocky soil. Unfortunately, I was unable to cast it because within just a few minutes of me getting these pictures, it began raining like crazy.
So we've found some interesting stuff, and and what Marty was talking about it on her show the other night. She was talking about the difference. Some people think they've actually found Bigfoot tracks, but what they found is a double step bear track. How bears walk linear. Mm-hmm. Their feet aren't splayed out, front feet and back feet. They walk in a line, and how you'll have a front foot here and a back foot here, and it makes it look elongated.
And those should be, if you're familiar with tracks at all, those should be pretty easy to spot the difference between an actual footprint and a double step, because you could see the toes outlines on that track that I put up, but on a bear print, the middle toes are actually longer than the outer toes.
Yep. Well, what her point was,
and there'll be claw prints too.
Her point with that was people saying it had a mid-tarsal break in it, but that was just where the two tracks met up. So, there's a lot of stuff out there that you because they were talking about how you vet your evidence and things like that. That's something that, and we've talked about it on here before. That's something that you have to take into consideration. If and Brian was talking about that. He's like, get somebody that you trust, that that, hey, like DA and I and Doc and Noah and Steve, we bounce stuff off each other all the time.
Right.
Because if you're just finding something out there and you're just keeping it yourself, and you're showing it to people and saying, hey, look what I found, you're not really doing yourself any favors, because it's okay to be wrong in these situations, because if you're wrong and at least what you're looking for now. You see what's, like, if you said, like we were talking about with the bear tracks, like DA said, it's obvious to me, it's obvious to DA, but there might be people out there who have never really looked at wildlife tracks, and they see that and they don't know what they're looking at or what to look for. But you show it to somebody who knows what they're talking about, and then they show it to you and they point it out and say that, you know, this is this and this is why it's this. Then you're like, okay, so the next time you see that, you're like, okay, well, I know what that is. And then you see something that's not that, and you're like, okay, now that's where stuff like that goes. It's not to try to make somebody smarter than you or try to make you feel stupid or anything like that. But if that's the only way you're going to learn.
Right. Exactly.
You don't learn from success. You learn from failure. Success makes you feel good, but failure makes you remember. You're like, I remember that. I remember what that felt like. I don't want to feel like that again. I'm going to make sure I don't feel that way again. So I'm going to make sure that I do things the right way. And not necessarily that you're doing things the wrong way, but you just, before I went to my tracker school, I thought I knew I'm going to go out there and, look at some footprints. I had zero clue how in depth and how much there was to a footprint in the ground. Right. I had zero clue that you could look at a footprint from one side or from one angle and see it clear as day, and then move 2 feet counterclockwise, and it disappears because of the way the light plays on it. And I'm talking a track that's that deep in the ground, and you move 2 feet counterclockwise, and it disappears. That's the kind of stuff that you have to train yourself to that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay because that's the only way you learn.
That's why I always say if you find a track in the woods, or if you find one near your home, if you find a track that you think is a cryptid, number one, put something in the picture for scale that you can have a known length that you can compare, and two, take as many pictures as you think you need to take from multiple angles, because it doesn't cost you. It's not like back in the old days when you had to have, every picture you took it cost you to have it developed. You can take 60 digital images from every conceivable angle of this track and not be out anything but a little bit of memory storage. And if it turns out to be nothing, you could just delete them and you're back to not being out anything. Take a lot of pictures, take from different angles, take from different heights, in every possible direction of the track, because like Robbie was just saying, Robbie can take those and look at it from a much different perspective and learn a lot more of that about that track than you or I will be able to look at just by saying, yeah, that's a track. I know how to track. Robbie is a trained tracker. There's big difference. I can follow a bear, follow an animal in the woods that I've shot, and hopefully bring it home for the freezer. But when it comes to, like, if I had to jump out of a patrol car and track a bad guy through the woods, I ain't your guy.
Y'all are, are somewhat trained, though. I gave y'all a little brief class.
Now, Mary, I'd love to see those pictures. Definitely. Yeah, Robbie kind of gave us a bit of a breakdown. So I'm now a slightly educated layman, but I would love to be able to have like some of those advanced classes. There's a guy. He's from New Jersey. His name's Tom Brown Jr. The FBI has brought him in many times to track escaped felons and things like that. The guy is a world-renowned tracker.
Yep.
He's got a number of books about tracking and survival that are just absolutely essential reads. If you spend any time out in the woods, read any of Tom Brown Jr.'s books. They are just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he was. My instructors mentioned him multiple times in our class. I went through the guy who owned the school is Larry Wilkerson and his son Talon. And Larry has worked. He was a tracker in the military. He's worked as a liaison and as a police officer for dang near every major police department in the country. And the other guy was Chief McCall. He was Army Special Forces. So this was a group of guys that knew what they were talking about. And they mentioned Brown several times. And when you get people of that caliber that know what they're doing, and that's the person they talk about, it tends to make you listen. And I'd already read his books because when I first became a canine handler, my dad gave me one of his books and said, you know, your dog's going to be a tracking dog. You need to, and that's kind of what got me interested in tracking, was reading his book. Because I was like, well, it's pretty cool to be behind the dog and watch the dog work, but it'd be even cooler to actually know how to do it yourself. So that's kind of, his book's kind of what got me into it.
Fantastic books, and they're well written. They're written simply. There's not a lot of terms in there that are going to be tough to understand. Al Bertrand 453 says on 1945 hours on February 7, 2008, a massive hairy biped crossed Highway 33 in front of me, 40 kilometers south of Swan Hills, Alberta, Canada. Been on the hunt to figure out what the heck I saw ever since. You know, that's exactly how a lot of people get involved in this field. They see something, they don't know what the heck it was, and they want to know more. And really, you get one of two reactions when people have a sighting like that. You've got the people that refuse to admit what they saw and just want to go back to burying their head in the sand. They don't discuss the sighting, and they refuse to believe it's out there, even though they saw it. And then you've got other people that it becomes almost an obsession. They've got to know more. And that's more or less what happened to me as a kid. I had some odd things happen when I was a kid, plus, some interesting things around the farm, and it just kind of inspired a lifelong curiosity, and I'm always wanting to learn more.
Yeah, it's kind of the same here. I mean, when I had my encounter, when you have your family laugh at you, it kind of makes you kind of standoffish about it. But secretly, I read and watched everything I possibly could on Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, anything that, and I think that's what kind of got me into liking horror movies and scary movies. So, like you said, it's one or two, and I think that when you have that experience as a child, I've said it before, it's a lot easier on your mind, because you said you've known hunters that were lifelong hunters that had an encounter as an adult, and they're like,
yep,
that's it, I'm done. So I'm glad.
I talked to guys who were not only lifelong hunters, but cops to boot. They were like, you know what? Never going back, and have not been back.
Yeah. I'm glad it didn't affect me that way. I'm glad it affected me the other way. I was never scared to go in the woods. But if I'd have had a different type of encounter, that may have been different.
If it reached through the screen door and grabbed you, yeah, it would probably be, if it nearly dragged you off, it'd probably be a different story. A Major Minor Manor says, are there any particular cryptid types that you would not expect to attack, which have at least one reported attack? I'm not sure. When you're dealing with any animal will attack under the right circumstances. So I would say any cryptid is under the right circumstances can and will attack. Same thing with animals. Look at the dog world. You're far more likely to get bit by a Chihuahua than you are a pit bull. Chihuahuas are nasty tempered little buggers that will bite the crap out of you. And they bite people constantly. They just don't do a lot of damage, so you don't hear about it on the news. But when we're dealing with cryptids, again, it's motive and opportunity. Do they have a reason to attack you, and do they have the chance? If you're in the woods, and it's a time of year where there's not a lot of game around, let's say deer have been scarce, or like in the cases in some place here in Missouri, you've had entire populations of deer wiped out of an area because of chronic wasting disease. Let's say their usual food source is unavailable. If they're hungry, especially if Bigfoot are clannish like we think they are, if they're hungry and they got little ones to feed, and they see a person and they think they can snatch them without getting caught, I think we're looking at a missing 411 situation. So, motive and opportunity are the two big factors. Do they have a reason to attack, and do they have the chance to? Especially if they think that they can get away with it. That's the same thing with any large predator. There's a cost benefit analysis as it's done in their heads. Is this meal worth the amount of effort it's going to take for me to put out to do it? There's no running down to the emergency room or to urgent care in the animal kingdom when you live when out in the wild. If an animal gets, let's say for example, a grizzly bear attacks an elk, which has happened. They've got the grizzly bear will evaluate what are my chances of getting killed or getting gored, because if that elk can turn around and get a horn into that thing and rip it open, that bear's going to die of infection, even if it does kill the elk. In the wild, once infection sets in, once those wounds become festered, at that point, it's basically game over. It might take the bear a while to die, or it might be fairly soon when other predators take advantage. But the point is a big wound in the woods, in the wild, is a death sentence. So anytime these things are going after a prey item, they're weighing, is the risk worth the reward? Camo says, do you think, Camo Dad 72 says, do you think chronic wasting disease would affect a cryptid? I wish Doc was here because he's certainly more educated in the medical field than I am, but I would say yes. Chronic wasting disease is a prion disease like mad cow. And they warn people all the time, if you've got a deer that's infected with chronic wasting, it can kill you. You should not eat it. So I would say it's probably the same thing with similar primates or other animals.
Johnny and I kind of touched on this on our New Jersey Devil show the other day that we did. It's coming soon. I think chronic wasting disease has been around a lot longer than what they're wanting us to believe. Think about some of the descriptions that people have given of the Jersey Devil, and think about some of the pictures of deer you've seen with chronic wasting disease.
Yeah.
Similar?
Very. Chronic wasting disease is something I worry about a lot. There are home kits you can buy to test your venison, but chronic wasting disease is a spooky disease, and anything that affects the brain, like the prion diseases, that is not something you want to get lightly because they might not be able to fix you.
Yeah, there's so much stuff out there. Some of the stuff that miraculously they just start talking about. It's been, we've used the example of people who see these jets in the military, and they see them and they think they're brand new, when in reality they've been testing these things for the better part of a decade probably before they ever even release it. So what we as the public think is a brand new thing, is old news to most people in the military.
Right.
Same thing with some of this other stuff.
I was looking at something. Let me, do you, hang on, I'll just ask her in this.
But Casey, are you asking if the show would be on right now or if I would be on the show? He was talking about the Man Tracker show from years ago.
Greg House has a great point. 90% of people that only think about the reported encounters think about the probability that minimum of 3 times more are never reported. I would say it's a much higher percentage. I think we're probably only getting a fraction of the actual number of cases of people seeing stuff, because in a lot of instances they don't want to be thought. They don't want anybody to think they're crazy.
Well, just like we talked about the transient population, how many of them go missing a year that nobody ever knows about? So the missing 411 numbers, or just the missing person in general numbers, are probably a lot higher than, well, not probably, we know they are, a lot higher than what is actually reported because nobody's reporting those people
Right.
because there's nobody to report them. So, you know, numbers are susceptible to who's reporting them. You know, you're never going to get anything other than what the people who are reporting the numbers want you to get.
Exactly.
You know, if they want the statistics to show that this is dropped or that's higher, that's what you're going to see.
Audacious Amber was talking about, I believe she's talking about chronic wasting. Says, doesn't it spread through saliva as well? I don't know. That's why I wish Doc was here. Doc knows more about chronic wasting disease than I do. But it wouldn't surprise me. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't want to take the risk. If I've got a deer that I even believe is infected, I'm not eating it. Just not going to do it. Missouri Broad says it's hard to know who to trust when reporting anything cryptid related. Yeah, I would be very careful about that as well. As there's some places that are just not either not going to take it seriously, or will put a different spin on it, or you've got to kind of gauge who you feel like you can trust to tell your stories to. And I'm not saying you have to trust this person or X person or whatever. I'm just saying you kind of got to gauge for yourself who you think is a credible enough source to share these reports with.
Yeah, and Brian makes a good point too. People are only going to report what's weird or scary. They're not going to call and say, "Man, this was a great encounter that I had with Bigfoot."
Right.
I mean, they'll say it on here on places like this, but they're not going to go. They're not going to call the BFRO or News Channel 4 or Fox or anything like that, unless it's something and even if they do, Fox is not going to, or any of the news outlets are not going to report anything that's a feel-good story anyway.
Right. Noah and I went out today to shoot that little TikTok video, the YouTube short promoting tonight's show. We went out to an area just outside of Springfield, out at Fellows Lake, as the name. And it's not that rural an area. It's outside of town, but there's still quite a few houses out there. But it was a fairly chilly day, and there wasn't hardly anybody out. But I think we were one of like two other people that we saw the whole time we were out there. But while we were filming, we heard two different times that one was just one, and the other was two. But we heard wood knocks out there at Fellows Lake. Granted, it could have been somebody who was doing it. We didn't see the source, but we heard distinct wood knocks. Yeah, we did see a traffic stop well outside his jurisdiction too.
You'll have that on them big jobs.
Missouri Broad says, Judy, we have a ton of Lone Star ticks on our property that cause alpha gal. Can't help but think it could be a biological weapon. Again, would not surprise me. Would not surprise me at all. Yeah, it was wild that we didn't take you out that direction, Robbie. Fellows Lake, when you think about places like Joe Bald, Fellows Lake does not come to mind. You can't camp there. It closes at dusk. It's owned by the local utilities company. There's public fishing there, and there's a lot of places you would see people. And if you go out there on a good spring day, place is packed with people out having picnics and stuff. It's not where you would expect to hear a wood knock, because there are quite a few houses around there. Granted, you are in the country, so the houses are every quarter mile or so. But there's still quite a few houses out there. And for us to hear distinct wood knocks, Noah and I looked at each other like, did you just freaking hear that? And it wasn't super close. It was up the hill behind us. And we weren't even making any noise. We heard one, and I looked at Noah, and at that point, it was when we heard the first one solo one, I was like, hey, what was that? and we didn't think any more of it. But a couple minutes later, when we heard 2 more, yeah, I'm like, that was wood on wood. That's what it sounded like. Casey Calloway says, if Bigfoot had grabbed you, you wouldn't be on the show right now. Well, I would have been a spicy burrito because neither of us were unarmed. This is Missouri. We don't check our mail without a weapon on. And let's just say I would give it a solid 1911 reasons. Numerous reasons in slightly less than an inch diameter.
Yep.
Greg House says, Casey, a lady I went to church with died from mad cow disease. Her husband was in the military and they were stationed in England for a few years. It was believed she contracted it there. Yeah, those prion diseases that affect the brain, once you're infected, there are times you may very likely succumb to it. You may die from it because they can't treat that stuff. Once you've got it, it's bad.
Speaking of 1911, did you see the meme that somebody's put out now?
Yeah, time to dust off the 2-time world champion.
2-time world champion. I started to send that to you, but I got tied up on something. I was like, yeah, DA will appreciate this one.
Yeah. I tend to carry either that or my it's Austrian cousin. I tend to carry one of those wherever I go, with very few exceptions. It's just the world is too dangerous and unpredictable to let yourself become a victim. Yep. And I don't plan on on going out that way.
Nope. About time to thank some of our affiliate or talk about some of our affiliates.
I do believe you are correct. It's after 10. Let's hear a word from one of our affiliates. Little Doc's not here to defend himself, so we'll just let Doc speak for himself. Let me pull that up. Here we go.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Third time's a charm, I guess. Also, if you go to darkangelmedical.com, make sure to use discount Cryptid25 for 25% off your entire order. And they are HSA and FSA eligible, and they have classes available to teach you how to use those first aid kits. I carry one pretty much constantly. I bet my life. I wouldn't bet my life on any other kit. When I was still on duty, I kept one on my duty belt. Robbie keeps one on his plate carrier. The Doc refers to them as birthdays in a box. Yeah, because you never know when a first aid kit be the only thing standing between you and life and death. And if you're a first responder and you're not carrying a first aid kit, especially a trauma kit, you're taking your life in your own hands, because odds are very good that trauma kit on your belt is going to be used on you.
Yep.
Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag Tactical?
Yes, sir. Scallywag Tactical. Let me get my little knife out here.
Just the little one?
Yeah, the little one. Which, again, was anonymously sent to me by somebody. Thank you, whoever you is. My Christmas gift list. This is the bounty. DA's got the push. What's the push dagger called?
Called the Dugan.
The Dugan. And we've got my EDC, the Jolly Roger. I'm gonna tell you, this is one of the best pocket knives I've ever owned. The Orca, I carry that one on to work every day because it's got the serrated blade on it in case I got to cut a seatbelt or something like that. That's in my pocket of my work pants. I carry this. This goes in the shop with me. It cuts cardboard. It cuts whatever I need it to cut. I strip wire with it. Just whatever you can think of to use. I mean, and it's still sharp as the day I got it. And I still have not had to put any. Thanks for that, Casey. Still not had to put it on stone at all. I got my sailor assisted folder. These are some of the best knives you'll ever have. And DA and I were talking about this before we went on the air. When I had my gunner's mate, I was like,
"Thank you, Casey."
That's what I was thinking about a minute ago. I had holding my gunner's mate. I was like, man, this knife just feels so good in my hands. I can't imagine, and that's the gunner's mate right there with a little extra on it. I said, I can't imagine anything feeling this good or any other thing feeling this good till I got a hold of this one. For this thing to be as heavy as it is weighted and balanced so good. And all their knives are that way. I mean, if you look how thick what would you say this thing weighs, DA? 2.5 pounds, maybe?
Probably in that ballpark.
To hold that much of a knife like that and it be that well balanced.
Thank you, Wyatt.
You're not going to find any knives anywhere that are going to, especially price-wise, that are going to outdo these. I don't think you're going to find any that are going to outdo it, even the higher price knives.
Probably not.
Especially in the same price range. You're not going to find a knife in the same price range as most of these knives. Now, obviously, these are a little bit more pricey than these, but there again, yeah, I mean that is I got big old hands, and I can comfortably get both my hands on that handle. I mean, that's basically a short sword.
Yeah, basically.
Unless you're Doc, then it's a claymore.
It's a Y-hander.
Yeah, it's your Y-hander. But has he got the blemish blades back up, or is that still?
They have a few blemish blades still available. Last I checked.
So, going over to Scallywag, look around. Still got some of the blemish blades, but even if it's not, they've got some good prices. They got some sales. They've always got some sales going on. They got their Scally swag because they got glasses. They got what else? They got whiskey flasks.
Whiskey flasks. They got whiskey
shirts,
tumblers, decanters, coffee presses. They've got all kinds of cool stuff. This is
right.
my Scallywag whiskey glass. Really good quality crystal too.
General just reminded me of the kitchen knives. They've got the kitchen knives too. And DA loves the kitchen knives, and I actually finally got to see the kitchen knives in person. Those things are beautiful,
and they are sharp.
Yeah,
stupid sharp. Like, be careful cutting vegetables sharp. You might lop off a finger.
But everything that I've ever gotten from him is stupid sharp. This thing right here, to be as big as it is, you would not expect it to be razor sharp. But this thing is razor sharp.
It is ridiculously sharp. The Dugan, straight out of the box, man, that sucker is stupid sharp.
Oh, my karambit that I carry on my plate carrier, that thing is stupid sharp. I hadn't told you, but yes, that entered the club too. Because when I first got it, I started doing the normal karambit thing with it, and I swung it around, and I caught it right on
with the karambit.
I nicked myself with the karambit. I said, "Ugh." So go on over, check it out. Use code DA Roberts 10. Get yourself an extra 10% off. Tell them we sent you. Craig and his crew will take care of you. It's a veteran-owned company. Great bunch of guys and gals. You can go on YouTube and watch them do a lot of their field testing on it. Who's the one that's
one of the videos on there? Mike Donvito takes the gunner's mate against a side of pork, and is using the gunner mate to not only slash through the flesh, but he slashes through rib bones all the way down to the spine on that thing. When I saw him basically hack through rib bones in one swipe. I was like, oh my God.
Yes, Lene, I got scallywagged again. That's not the first time. It's like a common occurrence with me. And DA.
And scallywagged. That's kind of a rite of passage anymore.
Yeah. This is the one I got scallywagged on air with, though.
You're gonna have to show your Brock blade, because I can't find mine. It was on my desk. I don't know if I moved it somewhere, if it got shoved behind the monitor, but I cannot find my Brock blade.
Sure thing. I show it.
We'll show that one. We're also a Brock Blades affiliate. Let me bring that up. Ken Brock, longtime friend of the channel. He's a good dude. He's a retired cop. He has a shop behind his house where he custom makes knives. They're all made by hand, forged right there. The handles are made by hand. All of this is done, in the shop behind his house. He does custom orders. He also has pre-made blades. Where Scallywag blades are amazing blades. They're top quality blades. They're all also custom. They're not. They're all mass produced. I mean, if you've got two of the gunner's mates and put them side by side, they're virtually identical. No two blades that Ken makes are ever going to be identical. They're all hand forged. And if you know anybody that's a first responder or veteran or still active military, the gift of a custom knife is something that'll be treasured. And these are not knives that are meant to be set on a shelf and just admired. These are working knives, and they are high quality. And Ken does a fantastic job. If you go by brockblades.com, you can see the blades he has currently available, or you can custom order and pick all the details yourself. But check out, make sure you're using discount code cryptid10 for 10% off your entire order. And if you're contacting him to do a custom, make sure you mention you heard about it here on Ex Machina, and he'll make sure you still get your 10% off your entire order. Ooh, Lordy. This 2 hours went by fast, dude.
Yeah.
It really blew by. One other thing I want to mention is, you can probably see it here on my wrist, the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. If you look at the Officer Down Memorial page or odmp.com, you also see just how many officers we're losing in the line of duty, and the numbers are staggering. They do track officer suicides as well, and it's a high number. We're losing too many of our first responders and our veterans to suicide. We need to be doing a better job of checking on our friends and family and our loved ones. If you know someone that's a first responder or a veteran, reach out to them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care about them. Invite them out for a drink. Have them over for a barbecue. You never know when that "Hey, are you okay?" text is what keeps them off the edge for the day. Again, 22 a day is entirely too many. Check out the Valhalla Project. They are a great organization, and that is what they do. Everything they do goes in to helping reduce veteran suicide. They help buy therapy dogs. They help buy artificial limbs. They give plaques to the families of fallen. They are doing fantastic work, and there are charities out there. There's quite a few veterans charities out there, but the bigger charities, it's kind of sad, but if you donate $100, you might be lucky if $1 of it actually makes it to the veterans. With the Till Valhalla Project, like 90% of everything they sell, 95% goes right back into veterans charities, and and it's all for veterans. I mean, it's all for veterans by veterans. These guys are all ex-vets, and I've got a bunch of their t-shirts, and I've got their 22 a day bracelets, and it's a great cause. And like I said, you can rest assured that anything you get from them or any money you donate is going straight back to the veterans, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. So check out the Till Valhalla Project. You can get some amazing mugs. I got this one. It says Valhalla awaits. I've got another one that says what does that one say? The other one talks about standing on the shoulders of giants. Robbie also makes some awesome mugs, but check out Till Valhalla Project because it really does help help a lot with with veterans, and they put so much effort into trying to reach out to not only the soldiers and veterans, but to make sure that somebody's there for them, that they can get the treatment that they need. So again, if you've got a friend or a loved one that is a veteran or first responder, just be sure you're letting them know you're thinking about them. Reach out to them, let them know you care, and because it very well might be the difference, all the difference. And let's get that number down to 0 a day, because 22 is entirely too many. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about your stuff and your channel before we dip out of here?
Yeah. You can also find me on What's Really Out There. It's we like to joke around Ex Machina a lot, whereas we go 2.5 hours on this show. Most of the time, Johnny and I go about 30, 45 minutes. Sometimes we go an hour. Talk about the same type of stuff there as we do here. But it's a pretty good show, I think. We hadn't really heard any other than some audio complaints, which, it's not like we're in a great studio or anything like that, but we do what we can with what we got. But other than that, it seems like everybody says we got a really good show. So that's all I got to go by. But we talk about the same type of stuff there as we do here. We've got, when this show on the Jersey Devil comes out, I think that'll be show number 50 or 49. It's getting close to 50 episodes. It's right there at it. And we've got 460 something subscribers. So we're getting close to the 500 mark. So we're slowly inching towards that first milestone. So go check it out. What's Really Out There. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. We really kind of pushing our YouTube version of it because that's just the easiest thing to push. But you can find us on the other ones too. Spreaker, iHeart, Spotify, all that stuff like that. It's really the gist of it. But like we got our next episode coming out will be about the Jersey Devil,
Which will be a good one. I can't
yeah,
wait
it's
to see that one.
kind of funny that it's been part of the intro since we started, and we never have had a show about it. Because Johnny's like, "You sure we hadn't done a show about it?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure I went back and looked at all the episodes. I didn't see one." I said, "We've talked about it as far as mention it with other things." I said, we hadn't done a complete show about it." He said, "Huh, I thought we had." So I said, "No." So we did.
And also, folks, remember, Noah and I were checking the analytics, and it's showing that a good percentage of the people that watch the show are not subscribed to the channel. I don't know if it's because YouTube is unsubscribed people. That does happen. But please make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe to the channel because we're still growing the channel. We're still trying to get our names out there and to reach a bigger audience. And we would appreciate each and every one of your help sharing the channel with people that enjoy this kind of content. And if you haven't already hit that like and share and subscribe to the channel, please do so. We would love to have you as part of the Ex MachiNation. Thank you guys so much. And we're going to close out the show with a toast. It's something that we started doing here recently, and it's something I'm going to continue. There's an old song that I'm very partial to. It's called the Parting Glass. It's an old Irish drinking song, and it's played at the end of the night when the bar's shutting down, when last calls are made all over the world in Irish pubs. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's really talking about more than that. It's talking about saying goodbye and lifting a glass to those who've gone on without us, to those brothers and sisters that have already crossed over to Valhalla. And we've all lost folks, we've all lost loved ones, and we need to remember them from time to time and lift our glasses. So if you guys would please join me as we raise a glass, and it doesn't matter what you're drinking, coffee, water, soda, something alcoholic. I'm lifting coffee tonight because I'm about to have to go somewhere, but this is a great quote from that old song, The Parting Glass. And if you haven't ever had a chance to listen to the song, go to YouTube and listen to it. It's a beautiful song. But the quote says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call, good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.